My wife secretly inherited $350, $0 from her late uncle, convinced me to remortgage our house for $200, $0 to fund her startup, only for her to disappear with the money after I found out she lied about her inheritance. Now she's suing me for the house, and I just discovered she's been cheating with her boss the whole time. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about my wife cheating on me and how everything fell apart in just a few months. But here I am, and honestly I still can't believe how fast my life went from normal to a complete nightmare. It all started with a series of small signs, things I brushed off at first, thinking I was just overthinking or being paranoid. But looking back, each one was a breadcrumb leading to the biggest betrayal I've ever experienced. Her name, Jessica. We'd been married for about 5 years, and for the most part, I thought we were solid. She's always been a little bitchy, quick to lie and manipulate, but I loved her, or so I thought. She's got a sharp tongue and a way of twisting stories that makes you question everything you see. Still, I never suspected she was capable of what I found out later. Never suspected she'd betray me so completely. It all started around 6 months ago. Jessica suddenly stopped sharing her phone with me, which was odd because she'd always been pretty open about that stuff. At first, I just thought maybe she was hiding something superficial. Maybe she was talking to an old friend or something. But then she started getting really secretive about her emails and texts. She'd leave her phone on silent constantly, and if I asked to see it, she'd brush me off, saying I was being paranoid. That was the first red flag, but I ignored it, convinced I was overreacting. Things got worse when she started canceling plans last minute, saying she was busy with work. But I could tell she was avoiding me. She'd get defensive if I asked questions, and her stories about her whereabouts kept changing. She'd tell me she was at her boss's office working late, then that she was out with her friends. It felt like she was hiding something, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what. Then, about 2 months ago, I noticed her phone kept ringing late at night when I was asleep. One night, I decided to check her messages while she was in the shower. I wasn't trying to spy, just curious because I'd noticed her getting more and more distant. I saw a string of texts between her and her boss, Mark, that made my stomach drop. They were clearly more than just professional, flirty, suggestive, talking about plans to meet up after work. I couldn't believe it. Jessica had been lying to me about everything, and now I was staring at proof she was cheating. That was the moment everything changed. I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and betrayal so intense it was like a punch to the gut. I didn't sleep that night, just stared at the screen, trying to process what I'd found. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, she was sleeping with her boss. It made me question everything: our marriage, her loyalty, whether I even knew her at all. The next day, I confronted her. I told her I knew about her affair, showed her the messages, and asked her to explain herself. Her reaction was classic Jessica. She denied everything at first, called me paranoid, accused me of invading her privacy. Then she got angry, yelled that I was controlling and that I was ruining her career. She said I was overthinking, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I was done listening to her lies. I told her I saw the truth and that I wanted her to be honest with me. Her reaction: she started crying, saying she loved me and that she didn't mean for it to happen, that Mark was just a distraction, a mistake. She begged me to forgive her, said she'd stop seeing him, that she'd do anything to fix us. But I was already cold inside. I knew this was not just a fling. This was a full-blown affair. And the worst part, I found out she'd been lying about her inheritance too, claiming she had none, only to find out she inherited $350, $0 from her late uncle, and then she convinced me to remortgage the house for $200, $0 to fund her startup. I did it because I trusted her, because I thought we were building something together. Turns out she was planning her own escape all along. That's when I really started to feel the full weight of her betrayal. It wasn't just the affair, it was the lies, the manipulation, the way she used my trust against me. I felt like a fool. I poured everything into this marriage, and now I was left with a house I might lose, a woman I no longer knew, and a sinking feeling that I'd been played from the start. Things are still messy, and I don't know what the future holds. I just know I can't keep pretending everything's okay. I never thought I'd be the guy to get cheated on, especially not by someone I loved so much. Now I'm stuck trying to pick up the pieces, wondering how I missed all the signs and what I should do next. I guess I'm just looking for some advice, or maybe just to get this off my chest. Either way, I've got a long road ahead. After confronting Jessica with the evidence, everything spiraled even faster than I expected. She broke down, crying and pleading like her world was ending, swearing she'd never do it again, promising she loved me, and begging me to forgive. Honestly, I was too stunned to say much at first. I just stared at her, feeling a mix of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief swirling inside me. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray me after everything? She kept saying it was a mistake, that Mark was just a distraction, that she'd been feeling trapped and thought she could handle it herself. But I knew better. I knew she was lying. She'd been planning this for months, lying about her inheritance, convincing me to remortgage our house, draining our savings, and now disappearing with the money and her lover. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the way she looked at Mark, the secret texts, the way she lied about her inheritance. It all made me sick. I felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The next morning I decided I'd had enough. I told her I needed some space, that I wasn't going to fix this, that I was done trusting her. She begged me to stay, said she'd do anything to fix our marriage, but I knew better. I knew she'd already made her choice. In the days that followed, I started digging into her finances. I found out she'd inherited that money, the $350, $0 from her late uncle, something she kept completely hidden from me. She convinced me to remortgage our house for $200, $0, claiming it was for her startup, but I later discovered she'd been planning to run away with the money all along. She'd already spent a good chunk of it, and now she was suing me for the house, trying to keep me from taking any control. Meanwhile, I caught wind that she was still seeing Mark, text messages, secret meetings, the whole 9 yards. I felt like I was living in a soap opera. Every day was a new shock. I learned she'd been lying to me for months about everything, her job, her plans, her family. She painted herself as this ambitious woman trying to build something for us, but it was all a lie. She just wanted the money to run away, to start fresh with Mark. I started to realize that this wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about her completely manipulating me, using my trust and love to get what she wanted. I felt betrayed on every level. My marriage, my trust, my sense of security all shattered. And what hurt even more was knowing she had been so bitchy, so dismissive, throwing fits if I questioned her, lying about her whereabouts, her intentions. She'd always been good at twisting things, making me feel like I was the crazy one, and now I saw how deep her deception went. I started making plans. I wanted to get revenge, not in some petty way, but to make her feel what I felt: utter betrayal, loss, and regret. I knew she thought she could walk away with everything, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I started secretly gathering evidence, bank statements, her texts, even recording some of her calls. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive husband who could be played. And then I found out about her affair with Mark. That was the last straw. It explained everything: her sudden coldness, her disappearing acts, the lies. She'd been cheating on me with her boss the entire time she was pretending to be this ambitious, hard-working woman. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut all over again. How could she do this? How could she lie about everything and then sleep with her boss? It was so disgusting. I felt humiliated, angry, and utterly betrayed. So I decided I'd take control. I couldn't trust her anymore, not after everything I'd uncovered. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to keep what was left of my dignity and maybe, just maybe, get some revenge. I started working with a lawyer, one who specialized in financial disputes, and planned my next move. I knew she was going to try and take the house, that she'd likely try to spin everything in her favor, but I was ready. I wasn't going to let her walk away scot-free. Honestly, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from this. But I do know one thing: I'm done being the fool. I should have seen the signs earlier, but I was blinded by love, by trust. Now all I have left are the pieces of a shattered life, and I'm trying to put it back together. The pain is still raw, but I'm determined to see this through, whether that means fighting for my house, exposing her lies, or just figuring out how to move on. Whatever happens next, I know one thing for sure: she's not getting away with this. The legal battle started pretty quickly after I gathered enough evidence. I wasn't going to let her take the house without a fight, especially knowing she'd been lying about her inheritance and sneaking around with Mark. My lawyer, a sharp guy named Greg, told me I had a solid case if I could prove her dishonest dealings and her affair. But I knew Jessica. She'd lie her way out of anything if she thought she could get away with it. That's why I started documenting every little thing, every lie, every suspicious call, every financial transaction that didn't add up. The first real blow came when Jessica filed her own paperwork, claiming she was entitled to the house because of some vague legal claim. She's trying to argue that her contributions to the house and her startup somehow give her ownership rights. Bullshit, but she's clever with words. She's trying to spin it that I forced her into remortgaging, that I was controlling, and that I've been emotionally abusive. I knew she was going to try and make me look like the villain, but I was ready. I had all the texts, the bank statements, the proof of her lies, and most importantly, the evidence of her affair. Meanwhile, I started to see the full extent of her manipulations. She'd been subtly turning friends and even some family against me, painting herself as the victim. She told her sister I was controlling and paranoid, which was total bullshit. I never raised my voice or got physical. I just wanted honesty. But she was good at twisting things, making herself look innocent while throwing me under the bus. Honestly, I felt like I was fighting a war on multiple fronts: legal, emotional, and social. One of the most shocking moments was when I discovered she'd been secretly sending money to Mark, probably to help him with some side project or just to keep him happy. She'd been funneling part of her inheritance into his account, and I had proof of that too. It made me furious. All those plans we had, all the trust I placed in her, she used them to bankroll her affair and her escape. It was like her entire life was built on lies, and I was the fool who believed in her. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. Every time I saw her face, I remembered the good times, the promises, the nights we spent dreaming about the future. And then I remembered how she lied to my face, how she manipulated me into remortgaging the house, how she ran off with her lover. That hurt more than anything. It was like the core of my world was shattered, and I was left trying to pick up the pieces. At the same time, I was trying to keep my cool. I couldn't let her see how much she was affecting me. That's what she wanted: control. So I stayed calm during our court hearings, played it cool, and let my lawyer do most of the talking. I knew I had the evidence, and I knew I had to keep my composure if I wanted to win. Every day, I felt like I was walking a tightrope, balancing between rage and logic. But the biggest shock came when I found out she was actively trying to hide her affair with Mark from the court. She'd been deleting texts, blocking calls, and even trying to get her boss to lie for her. I had enough proof to show that she'd been cheating on me the entire time she was pretending to be this ambitious wife. It made me realize she'd been lying about everything: her plans, her intentions, her entire life. I knew she was trying to spin the story in her favor, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Every day, I felt more like a stranger in my own life. I'd trusted her, loved her, built a future with her. And now I was fighting for my rights, fighting to keep what's mine, and trying not to drown in the emotional chaos she created. I knew she thought she was clever, that she could manipulate the system, but I was one step ahead. I had the evidence, and I was determined to fight for what's fair. The worst part: realizing how much she'd lied about her feelings, her loyalty, her very identity. She painted herself as the victim, but in reality, she was just a woman desperate to escape her own lies, using sex and deception to get what she wanted. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let myself be so blind. But now I see everything clearly. She used me, played me, and now she's trying to take everything I have left. I'm tired. Tired of the lies, tired of the fight, tired of feeling like I've been played for a fool. But I won't give up. I want her to pay for what she did, whether that's through the legal system or just making her realize she can't get away with betraying someone who loved her. I don't know how this ends, but I do know I'm not backing down. I deserve better than this, and I'll fight to the very end to make sure she doesn't get away with destroying my life. The court hearings dragged on longer than I expected, and each day felt like a new assault on my sanity. Jessica's lawyers were doing everything they could to twist the story, paint her as the victim, and claim that I was the one in the wrong. She sat there looking smug most days, acting like she had already won, like her lies and manipulations would somehow be enough to sway the judge. But I had my evidence, screenshots, bank statements, witness statements, and I knew I had to stay strong. The more I learned about her actions, the angrier I got. She'd been funneling money into Mark's account from her inheritance, trying to keep her affair hidden, and lying about her finances to the court. She claimed she had no idea her inheritance was so significant, even though I found bank records showing she'd been withdrawing large sums for months. She lied about her involvement in her startup, claiming she was working hard and building something legit, but I uncovered she'd been secretly funding Mark's projects, probably to keep him happy and secure her position in his life. Meanwhile, she kept insisting she deserved the house because she'd contributed to it, even though I had clear proof she'd been lying about her contributions and her role in our marriage. I knew the judge saw through her bullshit. I could see it in his eyes when she tried to spin her stories. But Jessica wasn't giving up. She was desperate, trying every trick she knew, crying, raising her voice, accusing me of controlling her, even claiming I was emotionally abusive. It was all a desperate attempt to turn the tables and make me look like the villain. The emotional toll was brutal. Every day I felt more drained, more betrayed. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, how I missed all the signs. The nights were the hardest, lying awake, replaying everything, wondering how I'd let her manipulate me so badly. I felt like I'd lost myself in this mess. I used to believe in honesty, loyalty, and love. Now I just felt numb. Yet beneath that numbness was a simmering rage at her, at myself, at the entire situation. One of the most shocking revelations came during cross-examination. The lawyer brought out her secret texts with Mark, showing explicit conversations, plans to meet up, and even her admitting she was using him to get out of our marriage. Jessica's face turned red, and for the first time I saw her truly panicked. She tried to deny everything, claiming her phone had been hacked, or that those messages were fake. But I had the screenshots, the timestamps, the metadata, proof that she was lying again. That moment felt like a small victory, but I knew it wasn't over yet. In the midst of all this, I also discovered how deeply she'd lied about her inheritance. She initially told me she had no money, that her family was broke, that she was just an independent woman trying to make her way. Turns out, her uncle left her $350, $0, something she kept secret from the start. She convinced me to remortgage the house for $200, $0, promising it was for her startup, but I later found out she was planning her escape all along. She'd been planning to disappear with Mark, leaving everything behind. It was like a punch to the stomach every time I uncovered more lies. I also learned that she'd been trying to manipulate the legal process, hiding her affair, and even attempting to get her boss Mark to lie in court. She'd been coaching him, I think, to deny their relationship or at least minimize it. I had recordings of her trying to persuade him, and that only strengthened my resolve. I knew she was trying to manipulate the system, but I wasn't going down without a fight. All this time I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How did I not see her slipping away from me? I was so blind, so trusting. I loved her, believed in us, and now I was left with nothing but a trail of lies and betrayal. It's a hard pill to swallow, realizing the woman I thought I knew was capable of all this deception. I started making plans for what I'd do if I lost the house, if she managed to take everything. I knew I'd have to rebuild, financially, emotionally, mentally. But I also knew I wouldn't let her get away with it, not without a fight. I had to be prepared for anything, even if it meant losing everything I had left. I'd come this far, and I wasn't going to let her walk out the door with my life's work, my home, and my dignity. Honestly, I don't know how much more I can take. Every day feels like a battle, and some nights I lie awake wondering if I'll ever trust anyone again. But one thing's clear. I've learned a brutal lesson about trust, deception, and betrayal. I thought I knew her, thought we had something real. Turns out I was just a fool for believing in her. Now, it's about fighting to keep what's mine and making sure she doesn't get away with destroying everything I built with her. Whatever the outcome, I know I'll never be the same. The court finally scheduled the hearing to decide on the house, and I knew that day was going to be the defining moment. Jessica was there, looking smug and confident, as if she already had everything wrapped up in her favor. She kept whispering to her lawyer, probably planning her next move or trying to spin some last-minute story to sway the judge. I wasn't nervous because I'd done my homework. I had all the evidence, all the proof of her lies and her affair with Mark. But inside, I felt a gnawing anxiety, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff ready to fall. When the judge called the case, I felt my heart race. Jessica's lawyer started with her spiel claiming she had contributed to the house, that her contributions and her work on her startup entitled her to a share. She spun a story about how I'd manipulated her, controlled her, and forced her into remortgaging. She even accused me of emotional abuse, trying to paint me as the villain. I kept my composure, knowing I had everything documented: text, messages, bank transactions, her own admissions of her affair. Then it was my turn. I presented all my evidence, laid out the timeline of her lies, her secret inheritance, her funding Mark, and her attempts to hide her affair. I played recordings of her coaching Mark to lie, showed bank statements of her funneling money into Mark's accounts, and shared her own texts admitting she was planning to run away with him. I explained how I'd been blindsided, manipulated, and betrayed at every turn. I looked directly at her and told the court that I trusted her, that I loved her, but I couldn't keep enabling her lies anymore. Her face was a mask of anger and frustration. She tried to interrupt, to accuse me of harassment, but the judge silenced her. The judge listened carefully, flipping through the evidence, and then he asked her a few pointed questions. She faltered under the pressure, her stories inconsistent, her tone defensive. The courtroom was silent except for the quiet rustling of papers and the judge's calm voice. Finally, the judge announced his decision. He ruled in my favor regarding the house, stating that Jessica had lied about her contributions and her financial dealings. He ordered her to vacate the property within 30 days, and he also ordered a detailed accounting of her inheritance and her financial transactions. Jessica's face fell, and she started crying, but it was too late for tears. She had played her hand too long, and now she was caught. That moment felt like a victory, but it was also bittersweet. I knew I'd won the legal battle, but the emotional damage was deep. Jessica's lies had shattered everything I thought was real. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Relief that I'd protected what was mine, and emptiness from the realization that I'd lost so much trust and love in the process. After the court, I sat in my car for a few minutes, trying to process everything. I felt drained, exhausted, and angry. I knew she'd probably try to fight me further, maybe appeal the decision or come up with new lies, but I'd done everything I could. I had the evidence, the truth, and the law on my side. Now it was just a matter of waiting for her to leave and figuring out what came next. That night, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of everything. I cried, I yelled, I cursed her name. All the pain and betrayal hit me at once. I trusted her with my life, my future, my happiness, all gone now. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I missed the signs, how I was so naive. But I also knew I had to find a way to move forward, even if it meant rebuilding from nothing. In the days that followed, I started packing up what was left of her things. I felt a strange sense of closure, like I was finally freeing myself from this nightmare. I realized that her betrayal wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about the fact that I'd given her my love, my trust, and she'd used it all to serve herself. I couldn't let her do that anymore. Now I'm left with a lot of questions. How do I pick up the pieces? How do I learn to trust again? And most importantly, how do I forgive myself for not seeing it sooner? I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I have to find a way to move on. The betrayal was brutal, but I refuse to let it define me. I'll rebuild my life, stronger and wiser than before, and I'll never let someone manipulate me like that again. After everything, I've come to realize that betrayal cuts deeper than any physical wound. It's like a cancer that eats away at your trust, your sense of security, and sometimes even your self-worth. I thought I knew Jessica, thought she was the person I was building a life with. Turns out she was just an illusion, something I clung to because I didn't want to believe the worst about her. Now I see clearly, and honestly, I'm angry at myself for being so blind. Losing the house, the marriage, the trust, it's all a harsh lesson. I've learned that people can hide their true selves behind a mask for a long time, and sometimes you only see the cracks after the damage is done. I've also learned that revenge isn't about getting even, but about reclaiming what's rightfully yours, about standing up for yourself when it feels like everything's falling apart. That's what I did. Fought for my home, fought for my dignity, and fought to expose the lies. But more than anything, I've learned how fragile life is, how quickly things can change when someone you love turns out to be someone you never really knew. I used to believe in happily ever afters, in honesty and loyalty. Now, I understand that life is that simple. Sometimes, the person you trust the most will be the one who destroys everything. Looking back, I see the signs I ignored. Jessica's secrecy, her lies about her inheritance, her sudden coldness, her affair with Mark, all of it was there, hidden in plain sight. I was too caught up in our life, too hopeful that things would work out. I was naive and I paid the price for that. But I also know that I can't live in regret. I have to move forward, rebuild, and learn to trust again, carefully, cautiously, knowing that not everyone is who they seem. To anyone reading this and going through something similar, I'd say this: trust is a fragile thing. Always pay attention to the small signs. Don't ignore your gut. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, to fight for what's rightfully yours. Sometimes the only way to heal is to confront the pain head-on, even if it's ugly, even if it hurts like hell. This experience has changed me. I'm not the man I was 6 months ago, and I probably never will be. But I'm stronger now, more aware, more cautious, and more determined to protect myself from those who might deceive me. Jessica's betrayal taught me a painful but valuable lesson. Never lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who doesn't deserve it. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, rebuilding your life, and never looking back. So here I am, finally ready to close this chapter. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'll face it head on. I'll make sure I learn from this, and I'll never let someone manipulate me like that again. Trust is earned, not given blindly, and I'll be damned if I let betrayal define me. Life goes on, and I plan to live it better, wiser, stronger, and more aware of what true loyalty and honesty really mean.